IGN Türkiye'den herkese merhaba. Bugün çok beklenen bir oyunla ilgili röportajla karşınızdayız. Oyunumuz Immortals of Evium ve yanımızda da Electronic Arts'tan Joe Hall var. Onunla bir röportaj yapacağız. Bu merakla beklediğimiz oyunla ilgili herkesin merak edebileceği, bizim merak ettiğimiz en azından soruları soracağız. Yanımda arkadaşlarım Atakan Diren ve Ramazan Durak var. Ramazan soruları yönlendiriyor olacak. Ben istersen başlayalım Ramazan.
Okay,
Cool.
so first question, if you're ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Rock and roll.
We are fighting the Everwar and trying to get Avium under control in the game. And to do so, we have to use magic. If we win, we are supposed to get rid of all the magic. And that is because the magic also devastates the world. So to save the world, actually, we have to continue damaging the world. Is this plot somehow related to our real world we are living in right now? Or is there something more to that story?
I would say obviously there's always like a inspiration from things, for sure. But I would say this is mainly regarding the Ever War of Avium. That's the more of the key right there. But there's always some inspiration of things that you know where our writing team and such got the inspiration from. Absolutely, there totally could be. But I didn't write it, so I can't say for sure.
Okay, then, what do you reckon? What is the most defining element that sets Immortal of Avium apart from other games in its genre?
It's new. There's not a lot of games out there that are doing magic spell casting and also being trying to be familiar also for the player base. There's color. There's definitely a lot of color back in the first person shooter. Yeah, so there's a lot of uniqueness there, and the narration and the story I think also sets it apart. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot that has that vibe of like that fantasy world, but also modern, and so there's a lot to it that people can relate to and enjoy.
Yeah. Related to that, like special effects play an important role in Avium. So, as the entire gameplay is based on spells, so which detail has been the most challenging one, and which one is the one you are most proud of?
Sure. No, the challenge was to make sure we pushed to 60 frames per second with the amount of things that we could do at once on screen. That was exciting, but also a huge challenge. And when we switched to Unreal Engine 5, that opened the door to give us more opportunities to show the vision that we had and present. So that was probably the one thing that we definitely enjoyed in terms of like the challenge that we're able to achieve. But in terms of there's another question. Oh, the thing I enjoyed the most. I would say one thing about our game is I would say outside of 5 cinematics, they're all real time. None of those are pre-rendered. Those are all real time characters, real time VFX. Everything is all in game. And I would say we're probably at 103 cinematics. So if five is that's very minimal. But those are probably obviously there's some very 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 big moments. I'm not sure if you played the game yet, but there's some very big moments in the game.
Despite all these visual effects, did you find it difficult to maintain the fluidity, like flow of the game? Like it's very based on visual effects. So performance-wise, did you have to put up a fight in the studio to maintain the graphics quality?
Most games they can't handle it. Not most games, but most engines, right? And so we're one of the first few studios that are releasing on Unreal Engine 5. That again, with the landscape and the environment, everything that was there, it with Nanite coming on play and Lumen, all these other new technologies that came about, it helped us to kind of get that more. So it was less of a push and pull. It was more of like, how much can we actually do? And let's hit that bar. Because you got to think like, so we're new IP, we're new technology. The Xbox Series X, the S, the PlayStation 5, all that stuff came out while we're in production, and as we're switching to Unreal Engine 5. And so the gateway of like how much we can afford kept growing and growing. It's like, oh well, we could do this now, we could do that, and utilizing the GPU was like a way more of a production friend. I would say just from sense like in like Unreal Engine 4 you could use the GPU, but in 5 like Niagara is what they kind of made production ready when we switched. Because when we switched, it was only a Cascade VFX tool, and then we went to Niagara once 5 came out, which was at that time production. It was beta before. So once we had that, it just opened the floodgates. The controls are like, I would say, earth shattering in terms of VFX creation. Like you have blueprints, all these other things that you could do, but with actually Niagara, you could build it all in the tool itself. And so that's what helped us to be able to like, okay, hey, we need to do this. Let's build it smart. And how can we populate this around the world? Because as you see in the world in the game, what you see in the distance is actually what's there. Like that's not like a matte painting or like set props to look like a vista. No, that's real. So if you could travel there, you could get there. It's not an open world game, but let's just say if you were like dismounted the camera or whatever, like you could travel there. That's actually real setup there. That's real geo. So yeah.
Yeah, impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And related to that, like the world is full of structures and regions that are very exciting to explore. What made you choose linear gameplay over a more open world?
Yeah, that was always the goal, is to have a story-driven game and have a linear single-player experience and bring the immersion and the visual quality up. That's absolutely our game director, our CEO, Brett. He came from Dead Space before, and then him and I both worked on Call of Duty together. And so, we're used to that campaign side of things, but obviously Dead Space is just a linear game. But wanting to return that in the first person shooter of that's the focus, is like, let's have this really cool story. Let's bring it up, like, like changing a helicopter to a dragon, right? There's just so many things that you want to do and build upon that. And then, so yeah, the whole idea from the get-go was definitely a story-driven, linear experience for sure.
In the game, spells actually act like real weapons in their foundation. So how did you come up with the idea of basing spells on real life?
That's a great question. Yeah, so like I said before, coming from Call of Duty, and I've worked on quite a few other first-person shooter. That's kind of more my forte. Having that boots on the ground, that groundedness experience, like having that fidelity and being familiar with that. That was our first base of like, how do we present that in terms of like what these spells are, and then keeping that familiarity. And so like you have the chaos magic, right, which is the red magic. And so you can think of it as like a kind of like a shotgun, right? When you have the frag fire or the breach fire, right? And the frag fire is it's like a pump, right? So he shoots it, he pumps it, shoots it again. So it's almost like a pump shotgun. But so that's that familiarity. But what happens is with the talent tree that we have in the game is that expands it further. So you can actually modify your play style as you're going with the talent tree. And there's a lot more things you can add to it than just a shotgun. Like it's not just that. So that's the baseline. That's the beginning part, right? That's the familiarity. But then it grows from there as you progress through the game.
Like coming to the challenges, what are the challenges of adapting such a fast-paced, fast-moving game with lots of images to different platforms? And what was the most painful process during the production phase?
The most painful is trying to make sure we're at 60 frames per second. That's the most painful, because that's always a hard challenge. Because in comparison to other studios, we're definitely half or less in compared to other AAA titles out there in terms of how many people are on the team. So that's a huge challenge in trying to present that quality bar and that amount of things and how long our narrative is. Like trying to build all that with like a smaller team. I could say internally we had only 4 VFX artists, which is very, very small in comparison to other games where they're like 17 or 24, right? So that's a huge challenge for us.
You talked about red, blue, and green spells, like different, like some behaving like shotguns and long range weapons. Like, what other parts of the gameplay were affected by such a strict separation of these spell colors?
Separation in terms of
like the red, blue, and green. Did this affect like other parts of the gameplay?
There's definitely things where there's elements of enemies that correspond with the color a little bit better. Like what makes one thing stronger than the other. So you might want to switch it up or mix it together. Depending, because you have like the blue lash and then you have the red frag fire. Or the control spells where you have the bash. Where you can like do that, call your magic, do a huge punch, and then like eviscerate the enemies and things like that. So there's combinations and things like that for sure. So it's just more or less getting a feeling and understanding as you're playing of how to use the spells per enemy types or situations you're in. Sometimes there's smaller corridors, sometimes there's open spaces. There's things you want to do at further range or shorter range or faster. So yeah, there's quite a few of those. Absolutely.
Immersion is a very important part for all the games, but especially these linear games.
Mm.
What kind of work did you do to achieve immersion in the game? Do you have anything specific in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't tell you which level it is. I'll tell you, it's the third level. Third level you're in. There's a level called Ruins, and when you open that space, the door, Jack opens the door. There's a big cinematic called Battle Imminent, where the ship comes in and a lot of cool things happen. But once you're done with that, you're in the trenches. You're in the actual war trenches, and you have all the sparks, the dust, everything around you, immersing the player into the actual feeling of this battlefield. Like, this is the out the gate. Okay, let's go. You're the tier 1 elite specialist. Everyone else is kind of like, they're magic. They can cast, they're mages, they can cast magic and things like that, but they're not like you, right? So you're the one, like the tier 1 operative in there to take it out. And so you get that immersion. You see what's happening to the other soldiers. You see the explosions going on, and so it's visceral and it's immersive. So it's kind of like a mix of both, of making the player feel like that. There's a moment further into that level where there's a dragon. I don't want to spoil too much, but you get that idea of that immersion, and then how we are transporting the player to the next area and all this stuff. So there's a lot of that to really bring you into immersion for sure.
That was actually all my questions were those. Thank you, Joe, for joining us.
Well, I appreciate it.
Answering
Thank you
us.
so much.
Yeah, it was very nice meeting you.
But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the game.
Evet arkadaşlar, Immortals of Aveum artık satışta, oyunu alabilirsiniz. Oyunla ilgili de oyuna en yakın isimlerden birinden görüşleri aldık. Oyunun arkasındaki felsefeyi de bize anlattı. Bence göz atmaya değer bir oyun. Ramazan ve Atakan, sizlere teşekkür ediyorum. Kendinize iyi bakın arkadaşlar. Görüşmek üzere. Hoşça kalın.